Without even realizing it, we discovered a car that my dad owned 55 years ago. So, if you guys don't know, my grandfather immigrated from France in 1957. He started working at a gas station on some European cars, and he saved up enough money to end up buying this little gas station. And it was, basically one pump, two bay stalls, very, very little place in Springfield, Massachusetts. I've actually visited it before. It's this funny little corner next to the medical center building in Springfield, Massachusetts, and they called it Medical Center Garage. Now, my grandfather was a hardworking immigrant, worked 7 days a week, sometimes a few different jobs. But in that time, because he knew European cars, he became like the go-to European mechanic in that area. He ended up servicing Ferraris, buying old broken Ferraris. He was buying old race cars from Luigi Canetti. And all these very, very cool cars went through that little shop. Jaguar D-Type, 250 GTO. I could go on and on and on. My dad was a young guy at that point. He had started working in my grandfather's shop, even though my grandfather did not want him to be a mechanic. Quickly, my grandfather learned my father was actually an incredible engineer and technician. My father rebuilt an engine at 13, would later be doing major jobs at 14, 15 years old. Listen, as any immigrant parent, you want your kid maybe to become a doctor or a lawyer, and that's exactly what my grandfather wanted for my father, but my father refused. He wanted to work on these cars. Now, it was 1967 or 68. Lamborghini Miuras, the first few had trickled into the US, and my grandfather had just sold a 1963 250 GTO for about $9,000. My father told him, that car's ugly, forget that car. The Jaguar E-Type and the Lamborghini Miura are the most beautiful cars of all time. Now, my grandfather went out and bought a Jaguar E-Type. He was a hardworking guy, but he really enjoyed himself. And then later, he would buy my father a Lamborghini Miura. Now, this was a used Miura. I think they paid like $4,000 or $5,000 for this car, but that was my dad's dream car, and he was 16 years old driving this car to high school. Now, the requirements was my grandfather wanted my dad to work at the shop. He didn't pay him a salary, so he worked at the shop, and he had to get straight A's in school. So my father, on the early days of his career, was working on Lamborghini Miuras and buying and selling them. Now, he later sold that Miura, made a little money, bought another Miura that wasn't working, sold that one, made a little money, but he would end up buying a really incredible Lamborghini Miura S, and this is where this story begins. About 2 years ago, I started getting messages from a young guy out of Canada, and he would write me every once in a while on Instagram, was almost sort of relentless, asking for a job at Curated. And listen, I would love to hire every passionate person I could. I believe in a younger generation, the next generation, but quite frankly, we're a certain size, and I can't hire everybody. I denied his requests a few times. I'm like, I'm sorry, we're not hiring right now. And then fast forward about a year later, this young guy from Canada walks into our showroom with a curated hat, a curated jacket, and tells us to give him a job. Sort of begs us. And I was just really taken back. I said, wow, if he went online, bought some curated merch, and then came in here, that's pretty impressive. I went back to our Instagram messages, and he was relentless. He stayed on top of me, and I said, okay, let's give him a shot. We gave him a shot as a young sales guy, and within the first 60 days, this kid was finding cars left and right. And one of the cars he found was a red 1971 Lamborghini Miura S. It's a car that hadn't been seen since the 1970s, and it was sitting in a garage in Northern California. Now, the car was sort of a mess. It had dents and scratches and some holes in the hood. It hadn't run in probably over 20 years. But what was so remarkable about the car, it was very, very original. Original glass, all original rubber, original chrome trim, and complete original leather interior. Now, if you know anything about Lamborghini Miuras, you know that most were vinyl interior or cloth interior. Not many cars came with full leather interior or full black leather interior. So I thought it was very interesting. It was a 71 Miura S, which was a late production car. So it had the leather interior, it had a radio, it had AC, which was also a very rare option. And the car was delivered to a US client new, so it was a US technical car. So it had the 200 mile per hour speedometer. Very rare. So immediately I start going through the registry and I start looking on the International Lamborghini Registry of all the red black Miura S's that came into the US in period. And I only found one. And I was actually a little shocked by this because I said, oh, there's got to be more. But no, there was red with vinyl interior, red with no AC. And I said, okay, maybe there was a car that came later and I didn't realize. So I ended up reaching out to my dad and I said, didn't you own a red black Miura S in the 1970s? And he's like, yeah, I actually bought it from a car dealer. It was almost brand new. It was like a couple months old. And that was probably the last Miura I owned before I bought my Miura SV, which he still owns today. He's the original owner. We've told that story many times on VINwiki. And I'm like, huh, really? He said, yeah, it had AC. It was full black leather interior, and it had 2 mirrors on the hood that were chrome. I said, okay, that's pretty cool. I'll, dig into that. So I go to this young sales guy, and I go, man, I think you found my dad's car. Like, well, what are the chances you're the young guy here, you find a car that I didn't even know exists, and then you find my dad's car. So Ross heads out to California. We send an inspector out to California. We inspect the car, and the car is really incredible. It's all numbers matching. The history's congruent. This incredible gentleman has owned the car since 1979. He took it off the road. Unfortunately, at some point, because it's preserved so well, someone quickly painted the car orange. So you see orange marks all over the car. They didn't even tape it off properly. If there's areas of it that you sanded down a little bit, you see the original red paint. So the car was never restored. I think you could actually save the original paint if it was still in its original red, but very cool car. So he purchased it and brought it to Miami. Now, I had to figure out if this was my dad's car or not. And at the time, he couldn't find any pictures of it. So we get the car to Miami. First thing I noticed when it's coming off of the truck is the car does have 2 mirrors affixed to the hood. And I said, oh, they're black. But as the car gets into the sunlight, I see all around the black there's chipping off, and they're actually chrome. So it was the first thing that I realized, like, wait a minute, okay, this has to be my dad's car, because how many Miuras lived in the US, red, black, S examples, with AC, had 2 chrome mirrors on the front hood? I tell him, and he's like, man, that really sounds like it. Let me come down to Miami. So I invite him down to Miami. He comes down, he sees the car. And there was one interesting thing about the car. There was this very odd lock on the side of the hood. It was on the driver's side of the hood, and it was like you put a key in it and you lock it. It was in a very weird placement, literally right on the side of the hood. We're walking around the car, and he points to it, and he goes, you know what that's for? And I go, no, what's that for? A lock or something? He goes, no, that was the alarm that they used to put on the cars. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, that was my alarm. So at that moment, we realized that this is my dad's former car. The patina in the interior, the smell of the original leather, and sort of reuniting this moment. He walks around and he's like, yeah, this was my car. This was the car I sold. And he says, wow, did I have a lot of fun in this car. So what an insane moment. What a surreal moment. Fast forward 2 weeks after that, he finally finds a photo and he sends me this original photo of the car. And there it is, chrome mirrors, like he said, with a small little hole on the front hood for the alarm. So it is this complete surreal moment, this insane story. I always say to myself, I am completely blessed to be part of my family's DNA, to have this connection with the cars I'm dealing in today. And it never gets old to see these full circle moments.
Have you ever gotten an automated speeding ticket either from a fixed position camera or a school zone? In the US, that's less common than it is in Europe, and most of the time when you get the notification, they'll tell you that it's just about the payment, that they're not going to report anything. As long as you pay your speeding ticket, you won't have any points on your license or any additional risks. But did you know that those are some of the easiest tickets of all to fight and beat, especially with a partner like the Ticket Clinic? In Florida so far, they are 500-0. They've never lost fighting one of these tickets. So not only can they get them totally thrown out, but they can save you a ton of money. So check them out now at the link in the description below. You can actually just take a picture of your ticket, no matter when it comes in the mail or how you're issued a ticket, and text that picture to 305-305, and that'll get them on the case immediately. They'll let you know exactly what the proper course of action is and what their strategies are for every local municipality or jurisdiction to get your ticket dealt with. And of course, for regular tickets, for speeding tickets and things like that, the Ticket Clinic is your perfect foolproof partner to fight every one. They'll help you avoid costly fines, risk of license suspension, points on your license, jail time, higher insurance premiums, all the bad things that come with getting a bad ticket. The Ticket Clinic can help. They've got a nationwide network of attorneys that can help you find the perfect local partner that knows your area, knows your county, knows everything about it, and can help you fight your ticket and achieve the best possible outcome. So check them out now at the link in the description below to thank them for their support of VINwiki and fight your ticket with the Ticket Clinic.